Hi guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the Acer Predator XN253QX. Now this is a 24.5 inch Full HD gaming monitor that runs at 240Hz at 1080p, has a quoted response time of 1 millisecond or under 1 millisecond, has a TN panel, and also has Nvidia GSync built in as well. Now this monitor can be found for around £520 in the UK, whilst around $500 in the US. Links will be down in the description below, including the specs. Now also what you will find is another video down there that I did, which is are 240Hz monitors worth it? I suggest you check that out because I actually used this very monitor in order to do my tests. So I did frame by frame analysis between 144, 240 and 60 Hz refresh rates. So now back to this monitor, I'm going to look and see if it's worth it and if you should spend about £520 on it. In terms of inputs, you've got DisplayPort and HDMI to choose from, and that is pretty much the expected norm. In terms of build quality, you've got a three-sided borderless design, so the 24.5 inch display looks quite small on a desk. It's also got a triangular shaped stand which is metal and provides good sturdiness to the monitor. The monitor itself can be height adjusted, pivoted, tilted, and swiveled in well, basically in every single direction. So in terms of ergonomics, I have no sort of issues whatsoever with the monitor. It's a really well built monitor. Now at the back, at the right hand side, around the back of the monitor, there's a little joystick, and this allows you access to the OSD. Now the OSD itself is very comprehensive, and I must say I'm very impressed with the layout that Acer have used. It's very much similar to what they've done with other monitors. Now you might be noticing brightness is on 0. However, I've just done that for the camera to pick it up properly. But here are my settings. In terms of color, I would suggest going on warm. It gives the best sort of color accuracy. You've got audio settings, gaming, overdrive, which I'm going to touch on a bit. You've got ULMB as well, which is in there, so it's worth bearing in mind. OSD controls and system, where you can adjust the hotkey assignments. For example, I've got overdrive and brightness there. Other than that, there's nothing else there. I just thought to mention that the power LED, which you might just see just at the bottom over here, little blue LED, can't be disabled, so it's worth bearing in mind that you will have to potentially tape it over if it really does bother you. Now, other than that, no issues whatsoever with the OSD, but let's talk about the picture quality. Now, the monitor runs on a TN display, and a TN display, generally speaking, aren't really known for their viewing angles, and I must say it's very much the same case with this monitor. Depending on how you look at the monitor, you might find that the colors shift when you move from left to right or up and down, and it just doesn't look that great. Now, on my own impressions, I must say I was relatively impressed by the color accuracy of the monitor. It looked relatively nice in terms of looking at the panel with my own eyes and without a calibrator of sorts. However, you could notice that the TN panel really struggled when it came to viewing angles, and that did throw me off as soon as I was just moving a little bit off the center point of the monitor. Now, I put it through a calibrator to see how it would fare out the box, and you can see that the color accuracy isn't that great. So even though my eyes looked, they looked decent for a TN panel, in comparison to an IPS or VA panel, this monitor really does struggle. Now, with an average delta of 2.95 and a maximum of 5.03, I wouldn't use this for any color editing or video grading, but for a gamer, I think it'll be perfectly acceptable. Contrast ratio for a TN panel is actually pretty impressive at 970 to 1. However, again, compared to an IPS and VA panel, this figure is very much lower. I will say, however, the brightness of this monitor is very bright. It gets up to around 375 to 380 nits, which is extremely bright and will pretty much blind you if you want to look at it. It isn't as bright as HDR monitors, as in true HDR 600 monitors. However, it is plenty enough for your normal gaming. Now, in terms of its brightness uniformity, I checked it as well, and it's actually excellent throughout the board. I'm very impressed to see this in this type of gaming monitor. That said, it's a £500 gaming monitor, so somewhat you should expect decent brightness uniformity. And also, it's a pretty small panel using a TN display. I checked backlight bleed as well, and there was absolutely no issues whatsoever. Again, your mileage may vary, but backlight bleed isn't really well known on TN based panels, so it's just worth bearing in mind, but I did check it, so FYI. Now, moving on from the actual color accuracy and how it looks like, let's talk about its gaming performance. Now, I played Counter-Strike for pretty much 2 months straight on this monitor, and I used it on a daily basis to see how the monitor would fare. And the reason I did that is simply because I was testing out to see if 240Hz monitors really made me a better gamer. And in all honesty, I must say that 240Hz wasn't life-changing. You'll be able to see in my video about 240Hz and see if they're worth it, that I didn't find myself to be overly impressed by the jump between 144 and 240 Hz. It wasn't life-changing and just didn't make me a better competitive player. However, that aside, I should note that the fact that this does have 240 Hz, so you're going to have less tearing, especially if your GPU is outputting, you're seeing over here 140, 150 odd frames, so you're going to have less tearing that's occurring, and of course more frames being displayed. Now, given the more frames, that means that enemies will pop out a little bit sooner. It is microseconds in terms of difference. However, there is actual factual evidence, which I'll be able to also display and demonstrate to you via the other video, that you do get a benefit on 240 Hz. Now, in terms of the response time of the monitor, it's quoted at 1 milliseconds or under 1 milliseconds, and I must say that is true. However, only when you dial the overdrive setting to extreme. Now, on extreme mode, I just didn't find myself to be too comfortable playing with this monitor. There was a lot of inverse ghosting which was occurring. When I say a lot, I'm not really saying a lot. It's not overly noticeable and, you know, blinding, but it is something worth bearing in mind that the ghosting did detract from my overall gaming experience. However, when set to normal, I felt that the response time wasn't as fast, but then the ghosting was pretty much eliminated, and yet the response time found a healthy medium. So it depends on what type of gamer you are and what you'll personally accept. Personally, I found myself using normal more than the extreme mode. Other than that, there's the input lag. Now, the input lag of the monitor is good. It's not the best that I've come across. However, it is still very good for a TN panel and for a monitor of its class. So I had no problems whatsoever when it came to using the monitor on a daily basis playing Counter-Strike, and this chicken is definitely not going to die. So anyway, so that is my honest thoughts about the gaming performance. It is really much tailored for a competitive gamer. If I'm a competitive gamer, would I be happy playing on this monitor on a daily? Absolutely. If I'm a casual gamer, I might seek better color reproduction and would just want a little bit more from the monitor. Now, aside the gaming performance, it is also worth bearing in mind that this does have Nvidia GSync. The GSync module officially supported, so you don't have to have a 10 series card, a GTX 10 series card or above in order to support GSync. It comes out the box and GSync is enabled. Now, I've got it disabled simply because I like to do my competitive Counter-Strike without any sort of interference and anything that might potentially induce any sort of input lag. So I have everything like this, FreeSync, G-Sync, all those things always disabled. Just to prove I'm running on 240 Hz, it's just worth bearing in mind that the Nvidia control panel, so you guys can see for yourselves that it has 240 Hz written over there. And also you can run it at 60 Hz if you feel for some reason you should. But anyway, worth bearing in mind. I should also note that at 240 Hz I didn't experience any sort of flickering issues, and I didn't have any frame skipping issues either. In order to use a ULMB mode, you'll have to reduce the refresh rate down from 240 Hz, so that's worth bearing in mind that if you do want to use that feature, there is a sort of limitation. So now overall, what do I think of this monitor? Well, to be quite frank with you, if you take everything that I've just said, you think this is a really positive review and it's a monitor you should definitely buy, specifically if you're a competitive gamer. The issue is, however, its price at £520. There are far better monitors out there, from 1440p, as in double the resolution, to HDR, like HDR 600 monitors, monitors which are bigger or curved. They have so many different variations out there for £520. I feel that you can do a lot better. Now, that's not to say that if you're an ultra competitive gamer and you are somewhat a semi-pro gamer, you shouldn't consider this monitor. I would say absolutely you should consider this monitor. It's a monitor that is very much aimed for the esports type of crowd. It's got everything there on the box that you might expect. It's just not a monitor I would personally see most consumers purchasing when they could buy themselves a 144Hz monitor instead. And as I mentioned before, make sure you check out in the description below for that video, that in-depth video that I've done of the 144 versus 240Hz. And it should be also noted that this monitor does come in a 144Hz variant. That's why you might see the picture of 144Hz on Amazon, but I am very much reviewing the 240Hz model, as you might be aware, given the shot I took of the Nvidia control panel. So there we go, guys. Let me know what you think about the monitor. It's not a monitor I would personally buy, but your mileage may vary. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like, comment, subscribe. Always helps the channel grow, and favorite and share if you feel that this video will help someone with their purchasing decision. Alright guys, I've been Totally Dubbed.